Hi, this is Stitchy Witchy B. I'm B. My pronouns are she, her. This is a channel about and for cross-stitching. I'm going to be going over my works in progress or WIPs for the month of May, and then go into some of my plans for June. Today is May 28th. I'm a little bit early compared to usual, and it's feeling good. To remind return friends and let new ones know, I try to work on 9 projects each month because I'm trying to get to all of my WIPs. And of those 9, I focus on finishing 3 projects each month, put in ideally 1,000 stitches, but minimum 500 on one of my extra large projects, and then get at least 500 stitches on some others, which include Whip Go Pulls, which is a game that was created by Jessie Marie Does Stuff. She handles pulling the numbers for Whip Go. Sorry if you can hear my air conditioner. It is just warm enough that I need it, so I will not be turning it off. I do apologize. I was able to complete my 3 finishes for the month of May, so I will go ahead and discuss those really quickly. In alphabetical order, the first one is, hopefully this will all fit in the screen, but I don't think it will. It will not, so I will do it in stages. This first one is All Are Equal in Death by Modern Folk Embroidery. I completed this on an 18 count bonfire by Witch's Garden Crafts, using Light Aged White by Valdani for the skeleton and text, Toasted Marshmallow by Night Sucker's Calling for the coffin, and then Autumn Harvest by Pirate and Robin for the leaves and vines around it. And while the lighting is good, it is just not quite showing Autumn Harvest very well. No, I just don't think we're going to get a great look at that, so I apologize, but here's the bottom part of the pattern. For whatever reason, this side of the vines was a little bit of a slog, but once I got over here, it just went much faster. I don't know why. I don't know. I think part of it was I originally was working off of paper, and then I got it as a PDF version, and that went so much better when I could use it in Pattern Keeper. Next, I have Demonade by the Witchy Stitcher. I completed this on a 20 count dusk by Fiber on a Whim, using the called for DMC. This took up a huge chunk of my stitching for the month. I had over 5,000 stitches to do on it, and at the time I only had a little bit of the outline on U done when I started, so everything else was done this month. But I am very happy with it. And then lastly, also by the Witchy Stitcher, I did Eat the Root. Usually I try to flatten these out a little bit better. Sorry, I never iron because that's a lot. But I usually do try to flatten them out a little bit better than this, so I do apologize. This is a quote from the show Hannibal. I did this on 20 count charcoal by Zweigart. I used Honeycomb for the gold color by Bestitch Me, and then Paprika by XJU Designs for the red. I will say I did have a bit of an issue with Paprika. I want to preface, I don't know if this is something that is still, I don't even want to call it an issue. I don't know what to call it. It's a situation with their floss. Because when I first got this floss, I don't even know if they were really advertising that they were doing it. It was on their website. I got it along with a fabric order, but I don't know. I don't think I've heard too many people talking about their hand-dyed floss. So when I was stitching, even just the lettering, it was bleeding so much color onto my fingers. And I can only imagine what would have happened if this had been a darker fabric, either just from transfer from my fingers back onto the fabric or actually bleeding around the stitches. It was intense. I'll try to insert a picture here I took of my fingers after stitching I think I did most, I hadn't even gotten to the antlers yet. It was most of the rest of this. It was a lot. So I had to be really specific and deliberate about how I would stitch, when I would stitch. As soon as I was done, I would go wash my hands, which I try to do anyway, before stitching. So this was just a little bit of extra hand washing. It's beautiful color. I really enjoyed it. I don't know, like I said, if that's changed in more recent floss dyeing that they've done, or if this is just something to be aware of with a highly pigmented red. I know that can be an issue with other reds. Sometimes people have said, this is the first time I've ever personally noticed that happening. But everyone's mileage is going to vary with that. Give me one moment to collect my other whips. All right, the WIPCO numbers for May were 15 and 18, which for me was something with animals and a new start. I worked on Chonky Forest Kitty by the Artsy Housewife for the first, and I started the fully released Twigs and Tea Stitch Along by Fine Frog Stitching for my new start. Chonky Forest Kitty. Yep, there we go. I remember. Is being stitched on an 18 count mist-dyed fabric by Bestitch Me using the called for DMC. Just working on the black in the border. There's a lot more black in the border, but that was just kind of the easiest to follow the trail on. And then Twigs and Tea is being completed on an 18 count honey, also by Bestitch Me. Again, using the called for DMC. I did get a minimum of 500 stitches on both, so I crossed them both off of my board. That's a more accurate look at the fabric. All right, and then my extra large project for the month was Pandemic by Long Dog Samplers. I'm doing this on a 22 count white Hardinger from Zweigart using PR 132 by Silks for You for this. I got a decent amount of progress here. I completed this plant here, got this little mouse added. I'm not even sure what this is exactly. Did both of the birds, kind of completed this little motif in general here, and started working my way up toward this larger plant that'll be here. And here is a look at PR 132. It's got some really mild kind of speckling to it, but it's not as variegated as a lot of other flosses. I also worked on Medieval Sampler. This is a pattern by Tinsel Cross Stitch. I recharted it using, I'll put the DMC I recharted it in. I haven't gotten to most of them yet. And the picture I'll show somewhere here will have the mock-up with the colors I charted it in. And this is also a 22 count white Hardinger from Zweigart. I was able to get the outline of this Quaker completed. Then I worked on No Time Like the Present, also by Modern Folk Embroidery. This is on an 18 count. I hand dyed myself using charcoal and black grit dyes. I'm using two Roxy Floss colors, one in Cabernet and the other in Wascally Wabbit. There we go, it's a better look at the colors. I went ahead and completed the rest of the first quote-unquote part from when this was a stitch along, which is this kind of top ribbon here. But going forward, I'll probably just work on whatever section my ADHD encourages. I don't think I'll really be going by these same strips going forward. But who knows? We'll see. I also did want to show the two floss colors here. And then after that, I also worked on, wrangling with fabric as usual. This is Siren of the Seas by Autumn Lane Stitchery. This is a 28 count Spring Woods fabric by Witch's Garden Crafts. Just using the DMC that's called for. Oh, that's a little bit better with some of the fabric there. I'd kind of hemmed and hawed a little bit about working on this in the past, but I finally got it loaded into markup, and it was a total game changer for my progress with it. I got more of the blue of her tail done here, as well as all of this for the background tentacle. I hadn't done any of it at all previously. I had a really fun time working on it this time. I actually had to kind of stop myself to work on my other stuff at one point, so that went very, very well. And then I will confess I misbehaved a little bit. I did start a new project separate from the new start I was allowed by WIPGO. I was a little bit stressed. I used this as a coping mechanism. I started Sampler 185 by 2x2 Stitch Art, and there's a dangling thread, so I do apologize about that. This is being stitched on 32 count coconut shell by Bestitch Me. I am doing 1/1 stitching using Chocolate Roses and Bedrock, both by hand dyed by Rolanda. Chocolate Roses is beautifully variegated, does go to that lighter color at the ends. And then I'll be doing some of the other borders, kind of going back and forth with this Chocolate Roses, and I think that'll be a really pretty contrast. Doing 1/1 on 32 count. It takes me a little bit to get into when I first get started, but once I'm going, it's not too bad, thankfully. Okay, that was my progress for May, and I will put a little graphic of kind of my specific 9 projects, how I did on those here. Let me resituate myself a little bit, and I will show you what I'll be working on in June. Well, for you it won't be any time, but just a moment, please. Okay, there will still be a little bit of crinkling, but I think I've actually opened everything now, so hopefully it'll be a little bit better. So for June, I am going to have kind of a big life change happening. I'm actually starting a new job on Monday, June 1st, and while I'm really excited, genuinely very, very excited, I'm also just not sure how much of a drain on my energy it's going to be. So I'll be having to adjust and doing a lot of training, and I'm pretty sure it's going to be very mentally and socially and all of that exhausting. It is remote, thankfully, still, and it's in a field that's kind of tangentially related, but in a very different industry from stuff that I'd done before. So there's going to be a lot of changes, and it's just going to be a lot to adjust to, I think. So because of that, I did make some tweaks for what I'm looking at for the month of June. The WIPGO choices for June were 21 and 12, which for me is something horror themed and something by Tinsel Cross Stitch. I do my WIPGO not by specific projects, but by themes or general categories. So for that, I will be working on, for my horror project, I will be doing, I have a very, very tiny start on this. Leshy by the Witchy Stitcher. And then sorry about the noises. Palestinian Ornament by Tinsel Cross Stitch. Hopefully that shows a little bit more of how beautiful this fabric is. And I'll discuss the fabrics and all of that for everything in my actual June video when I show my progress. Then my extra large project is going to be to work on and, fingers crossed, finish the block I started on Halloween at Hawk Run Hollow. Let's see. So I still have 2 skeletons and a few more worms left to do, and then the rest is just fill in of this dirt. Quick note, while this is the 12th and last block of the pattern, it's the first one I'm working on. I wanted to get the full coverage one done right away. Knock it out first and then come back to work on the rest. But I do have everything else mapped out and blocked out. Then my 3 finishes that I'm hoping to do are Strawberry Fields by the Artsy Housewife. And then I'm going to circle back around to the finishes I did not get done in March, and work on Vampire by Create Your Desire, and then start and finish Mushroom Book by White Protea Art. Alright, and then for my other 3 projects, so like I said, normally I've been doing 9 each month, but I'm starting to get to a point midway through the year where I'm not sure I'll need to do a full 9 anymore just to touch everything and work on everything. Ideally, I would like to try to use any whip build pulls to cover things that I've already picked out for the month, but that didn't quite work out this time, because I really wanted to work on these other 3 projects as well. But these are also ones where if I don't get to them, I'm not going to beat myself up over it. Just again, I just don't know how I'm going to be doing with my energy this next month. But in an ideal world, I will also work a bit on Pipevine Swallowtail by Carolyn Manning. I am going to be restarting this, which I realize is ridiculous, but when I was working on Common Buckeye earlier in the year, I started it on this 25 count, and I absolutely loved it. So I wanted to do Pipevine on the other half of this, because I don't think it'll be very big. I think they'll both fit on here. So I will be restarting it here and just trying to get at least 500 stitches in. Additionally, I will be hopefully working on sorry, this one is not going to all fit in the screen again. Within a Dream by the Artsy Housewife. I've got the full inner border done, and I've been working on the pieces of the rest of the border. And then for the 3rd project, this is also going to be undergoing some changes. Apparently that's just what June is going to be about, and I'm okay with that. I only had a very tiny start already on this, so it's not going to be a huge loss to undo what I've got. I'm still using the same fabric. This was meant to be the Witches sampler by Contrary Peri. I'm changing up my original floss choice, which was to use this pumpkin cane. Now I'm going to do the outside border I don't know if this is going to show up nicely, but in Witchy Night by Cottage Garden Threads, and then do the text in Black Licorice, and the, like, B is for broom, C is for cauldron, I think in this Weathervane. I think those will kind of all go well together. A little bit muted. I'm also debating whether or not to use this Valdani, because it does kind of go well with everything, but I don't know exactly. Also, if anyone knows what the item is for A, and you could help me out with that. I was trying to figure out, I'm not sure if it's just a fancy awl, AWL, used for like leatherworking and other things. I don't know if that's what it is. Or I tried looking up A names for, or other versions of daggers that use an A. Couldn't find anything. Not sure what that is. So if anyone does know and can contribute that, I would greatly appreciate it, because I'm not sure what that is. But those are the 3 that in an ideal world I'll also be able to work on. And in general, I did do some kind of revising and looking at things that I'd hope to finish throughout the year. As I was doing that, I realized that I was operating heavily on vibes at the beginning of the year when I picked what projects I wanted to finish. A lot of them were very excellent choices, but some of them were purely like, oh, this would be cool to finish, but I wasn't looking at it logistically. By which I mean there were several that had 7,000 to 9,000 stitches that still needed to be done. Not in the total project, but that still needed to be done. And if that was the only finish I was doing for that month, that's a lot, but it's doable. But it was that plus 2 other projects that still needed, you know, at minimum, I think all of my things need at least like 1,200 stitches in them to finish them out. So I did trade those out for a few others that needed fewer stitches to finish. So I am still trying to finish the same number of projects in the year. And again, you guys, this is all stuff that I've just been noodling on in the background, so this doesn't necessarily affect you guys that much, but just to kind of show you where my head's been at with what I'm looking at, and give you more insight into how this whole plan has been going throughout the year in the first place. Yeah, and since I've already finished what I'm needing to do for May, there are 2 larger projects I did keep, because whenever I work on them, I do tend to get a lot done, and I still would, in general, like to get them done at the end of the year. So because I'm done with all my needed stitches for May, I am going to work ahead on one of those and see if I can get it to a better spot. And that is going to be the Stitch Crypt's Study of Skulls. I do have it here. So I'm going to try to get some more progress done on this guy this month, actively, in hopes of finishing him by the end of the year. That's better for the coloring. There we go. So probably as soon as I'm done with this, but before I edit, I will try to get some stitches in there. And then the other one that's a big, or still has a lot of work on it left, is Monster House by Satsuma Street. And I may do a short video in July or early August just to do a half-year check-in on my overall efforts I've been making to really get some of these smaller projects out, get my whip count down a bit, something slightly more manageable than the over 100 I had at the start of the year. But I'm not going to, I don't know, we'll see. I've also been encouraged to possibly do the Getting to Know Your Flosstuber questions by the 310 Stitcher. So I may do something with that just as a, again, like a quick and easy touch base, depending on exactly how brain fried I am over the throughout the summer. I know a lot of people get seasonal depression during the winter when the sun isn't out much. I get it during the summer because it's so hot and I feel so gross and I can't get cooled down. I have a very hard time regulating my body temperature, and it's upsetting. But we'll see. That might help me distract myself from all of that. But that is it for this video. If Thank you very, very much if you stuck around for all of this. If any of the types of projects I work on are at all interesting, please subscribe, stick with me. I do tend to only update once a month usually, and I try to keep them relatively quick, but your mileage may vary whether or not these projects interest you or not. I appreciate you all very much, though, for your time and attention. Thank you very much. Try to remember to get enough water, stay safe, take your meds if you need to, and focus on what makes you happy. I'll see you next time.